Nestled in the heart of Busan, amidst the hustle and bustle of everyday life, lies a mystery that has captivated the city and beyond. This case seems like a tale ripped straight from the pages of a chilling thriller. A newlywed couple settled down in Busan, South Korea's second largest city. However, 6 months after their wedding, they disappeared under mysterious circumstances. In November 2015, Choi Sung-hee, a renowned theatre actress, married Kim Yoon-suk, a restaurant owner. On May 27, 2016, around 11:30 p.m, a security camera captured Choi returning home with bags of groceries. Later that same night, about 5 hours later, her husband, who had been out drinking with co-workers, was seen on the same CCTV returning to their apartment around 3:45 a.m. After a week had passed without any contact from the couple, Kim's father grew increasingly worried and decided to contact the police. On June 2, 2016, the police officially launched an investigation into the case after it was reported. Officers were dispatched to the couple's apartment on the 15th floor of a complex, but received no response when they knocked on the door. With no other option, the police were forced to break into the apartment. Upon entering the residence, the police found no signs of struggle or forced entry. However, they noticed that personal items such as passports, wallets, and laptops were missing. Previously seen with Choi, groceries remained untouched on the dining table, and their car remained parked in the garage. There was dirty laundry, leftovers, trash, and unwashed dishes in the sink. Their dog, who recently had surgery, was still inside the apartment, left unfed and with its feces all over the place. This was strange because Choi was well known for taking care of her dog. With these puzzling clues, the police turned to CCTV footage to retrace the couple's movements leading up to their disappearance. The newlyweds' residence is equipped with a total of 22 cameras, both indoors and outdoors. 70 police officers were deployed to examine the CCTV footage and dashcam recordings from nearby vehicles. Upon investigation, they found footage of the couple's returning home, but strangely, none of the 22 cameras captured either of them leaving the apartment. There was no footage of them exiting their residence. The couple could have exited with very few blind spots in the building. They could have taken the emergency exit stairs to the first floor, which didn't have any CCTV cameras. But if that was the case, there is a camera right at the entrance to the stairs with a very small blind spot, but it would still require the couple to walk under the camera. The police concluded that whoever was responsible for their disappearance was extremely familiar with the camera angles, but if there was any struggle, it would have been captured on camera. They suspected foul play by someone well versed in evading surveillance. Since the police could get nothing out of the footage, they eventually began to think the couple had been murdered. They started to interview potential suspects and witnesses. On May 29th, Choi's assistant director from the theatre group reached out, concerned about Choi's absence from work, which was unusual. A man identifying as Kim answered the call, stating that Choi wouldn't return to work for a while. Simultaneously, a text from Kim's phone informed his partner he'd been absent for a month or two due to personal obligations. The following day, the assistant director received a text message from Choi's phone, saying she wouldn't be able to perform due to hospitalization following an accident. She also mentioned being unable to respond to calls or texts. The assistant director attempted to reply, but Choi's phone was disconnected. The assistant director suspected the message's authenticity, noting its formal tone, which differed from Choi's casual texting style. On May 31st, an individual claiming to be Kim communicated with Choi's boss, who couldn't authenticate the caller's identity as they were unfamiliar with Kim's voice. He informed the boss that his wife had overdosed on prescribed medication and was hospitalized, unable to speak to anyone for a while. At the moment, this seemed justified, given Choi's previous struggles with depression and past suicide attempts through overdosing. However, police investigations revealed no hospital records for Choi's admission at the time, with her last medication pickup in March. While Choi's employer was receiving messages from Choi's phone, Kim also contacted his employees, informing them of his temporary absence from the restaurant, but assuring them of financial support to keep the restaurant running. Despite Kim's employees recognizing his voice, the caller sounded fatigued, leading the police to suspect the possibility of an impersonator pretending to be Kim Yoon-suk. These strange communications forced the police to track the locations of the couple's mobile phones. The cell phone records revealed Kim was in Busan around 9 AM, while Choi's cell phone was activated in Seoul at around 10 AM, close to Kim's parents' residence. This was particularly odd considering the considerable distance between the two cities, with Seoul being approximately 324 kilometers from Busan. Later, in September 2016, a middle-aged woman at a physician's office asked the nurse if she could pick up a depression prescription for her daughter-in-law. The nurse checked the information provided and found the person was missing, so she immediately alerted the police. Kim's father recognized the woman as Choi's sister. During the police's interrogation, she explained that her only intention was to check whether Choi had recently collected her medication and to gather clues regarding her missing sister. During the investigation, no clear reason was found for the couple's disappearance or any possible targeting. They were financially secure, had no debts, held standard insurance policies, and had around $27,000 in savings. However, discussions with Kim's co-workers unveiled a potentially significant breakthrough in the case. His co-workers told the police that he had a second phone hidden from his wife, and it was exclusively used to talk to his ex-girlfriend Yoon. Kim and Yoon ended their romantic relationship years ago due to a disagreement between their families. Following their breakup, Yoon got married, but her marriage only lasted a few months as her husband accused her of cheating with Kim Yoon-suk. A few years later, she remarried and settled in Norway with her new husband. During her time in Norway, around 2014, Yoon suffered from a miscarriage, which greatly affected her mental health. She sent threatening messages to both Kim and Choi, blaming them for ruining her life. Shortly after Choi announced her pregnancy to her friends and family, Yoon traveled to South Korea alone. She did not inform her family and friends that she was in Korea and never met up with any of them during her trip. Instead, she stayed in motels and saunas and only paid with cash throughout her stay. 5 days after the police started their official investigation, Yoon exchanged her ticket to fly back to Norway 2 weeks earlier than her planned departure date. Yoon's strange behavior led to suspicion, but there was no proof connecting her to the disappearance of the newlyweds. Despite this, the Korean police involved Interpol, resulting in Yoon's arrest in November 2017. However, extradition from Norway was unsuccessful. Despite being detained, Yoon fought the extradition request in court, and the Norwegian court ruled in her favor due to insufficient evidence. The authorities had no choice but to depend on Yoon's willingness to return to South Korea for questioning. Yoon's mother traveled to Norway to convince her daughter to cooperate with the police, but she declined her mother's request. Adding to this case's complications is Kim's father's odd behavior. Initially, he reported the couple missing. However, during a television interview, he stated his intention to protect his son, without mentioning Choi, and seemed oddly uninterested in finding the couple. There are many unanswered questions regarding this case. Were Kim and Yoon both involved in this elaborate plan? If yes, where is Kim? Why did Kim's father suddenly become disinterested in pursuing the case? How did their phones get so far apart? Why was Choi Sung-hee's phone traced near her in-laws' house? Who was the man who spoke to Choi's boss on the phone? Was it Kim or an imposter? If there were only a few blind spots to avoid the CCTV, who would have known them better than Kim himself? The police found no signs of struggle. Is it possible that Kim lured Choi out of the residence? Why were specific items such as passports, wallets, and laptops missing? Is it just a coincidence that Yoon traveled to Korea as soon as Choi announced her pregnancy? And why did Yoon not inform or meet up with her family or friends in Korea? I would love to know your answers to these questions in the comments section below. Robert Fisher seemed destined to break the cycle of pain that marred his early life. A man shaped by trauma, he aspired to provide his family with the stability his own childhood lacked. But on April 10th, 2001, those hopes were reduced to ashes. Born to William Fisher and Jan Howe, Robert's early years were defined by turmoil. His parents' divorce during his teenage years left a deep emotional scar, one that he carried into adulthood. After moving to Arizona with his father and 2 sisters, Robert completed high school and pursued a dream of becoming a Navy SEAL. When that dream ended in failure, he left the Navy and transitioned to firefighting in California. A back injury forced yet another pivot, leading him to various roles: surgical technician, respiratory therapist, and weed sprayer. In the late 1980s, he married Mary Cooper, and together they had 2 children, Bobby and Brittany. Robert's childhood experiences would encourage him to create a better environment for his children, yet shadows of his past never truly left him. To his family, he was less of a devoted father and more of a dictator. He frequently fought with his wife and one day even turned on the garden hose on her for speaking out of turn. He was a seasoned hunter and fisherman and found shame in realizing that Bobby, his son, had no interest in either of the activities. He once threw both children off the boat to teach them to swim. He even yelled, "Now there, how's that?" Soon, Robert's friends began seeing an unsettling development in his behavior. One recounted how he smeared the blood of an elk on his face once, then snuck up behind a group of people who came on a picnic and started firing into the air. As they screamed and ran in fear, Robert laughed, and his partners just witnessed a maniac in development. But his cruelty wasn't confined to people only. He shot a pit bull who he claimed threatened his Labrador Blue. However, the police suspected he lured the dog over intentionally, but it couldn't be proven. Even within his own home, Robert's world felt sterile, literally. He only allowed his home's walls to be painted white and minimally decorated, a home as cold as the man who lived within. It was evident that Robert's behavior turned his family situation into what he suffered in childhood. However, Robert still clung to an image of himself as a family man. Behind closed doors, his marriage was fractured. He once confessed to spending a night with a prostitute and often spoke to his friends about committing suicide. According to one of the neighbours, Robert and Mary would frequently argue, but Robert, being a family man, never screamed, while Mary used to call him names and hit his self-esteem. But suddenly things changed. Robert told his hunting companions he would renew his relationship with his family since he could not live without them. He even claimed divorce was not the option, hinting that he still remembered how his life went after his parents' divorce. But Mary had made up her mind. On the evening of April 9th, 2001, neighbours heard loud arguing coming from the Fisher residence, but nothing more after that. The house remained silent until 10 hours later, on the morning of April the 10th, it suddenly erupted into flames. The entire block quickly called 911, and the volume of calls became so overwhelming that dispatchers had to ask if callers were reporting the house fire. While waiting for firefighters to arrive, neighbours did their best to contain the blaze with garden hoses, preventing it from spreading to nearby homes. The flames reached a staggering height of around 20 feet, an unusually intense fire for a typical house explosion. The neighbours saw Robert's car destroyed but realised Mary's Toyota 4Runner was missing, and they assumed the family wasn't home. However, the relief was short-lived. As the fire died down and the police arrived, what they uncovered was completely baffling. During their investigation, they discovered that the gas line at the back of the house had been intentionally cut, with candle wax and gasoline found nearby. The evidence pointed to the possibility that a candle had been used as a timer to ignite the fumes from an open gas line, triggering an explosion once the fire reached the gasoline, effectively destroying any trace of the perpetrator. But the situation was about to take an even darker turn. As more seasoned professionals took charge of the case, they uncovered a disturbing truth. There were 3 people inside when the house exploded, and luckily, their bodies could still be examined. Examination of the bodies concluded that they were Mary, Brittany, and Bobby, but oddly, all of them were killed before the explosion. Mary was shot in the back of the head while the children's throats were slashed. The house explosion turned into a triple homicide with Robert's whereabouts unknown. While searching the remains of the house, Robert's gun safe was found. However, his personal revolver was missing, among the guns creating more confusion. He was last seen in an ATM withdrawing cash on the evening of the incident, with Mary's 4Runner in the background. However, that was the last transaction Robert ever made. The police got enough evidence to suspect Robert, whose name was soon labelled as the only person of interest in the case, prompting a statewide bulletin instructing the Arizona Department of Public Safety officers to arrest him on sight. The surveillance footage was proof that Robert was no doubt fleeing, and soon he was charged with 3 counts of felony murder, 1 count of felony arson, and unlawful flight to avoid prosecution. The whole state was looking for Robert to find out what made him commit such a heinous crime. The investigation went on without any major breakthrough until the 20th of April 2001, when authorities found Mary's 4Runner in the Tonto National Forest. However, the car was abandoned, and the only occupant found was Robert's dog, Blue, cowering beneath the car, hungry and disoriented. During the search of the 4Runner, an Oakland Raiders cap identical to the one Robert wore at the ATM was found too. Yet the car proved useless in providing any solid or possible lead to bring Robert to justice. Despite the discovery of footprints leading away from the vehicle, which launched a massive investigation, the leads quickly ran cold. This wasn't due to Robert having fled long before, but because the police were not fully committed to their work. The area was riddled with dozens of caves, many of which were complex tunnel networks, so intricate that even cave experts admitted they were perfect hiding spots for someone like Robert. However, the police searched only a couple of those caves and confidently concluded that Robert had either escaped or died. Further incompetence was shown when the police neglected to search the Fort Apache Indian Reservation, which was less than a mile away from where Mary's car was discovered. The authorities claimed that the area couldn't be entered without approval and an escort. This sounds more like an excuse, as if the reservation authorities had been contacted, arrangements could have been made, and permission could have been granted. In the coming years, there were multiple unconfirmed sightings of Robert. In February 2004, a man who had a striking resemblance to Robert was arrested in Vancouver. This man had a surgical scar on his back, just like Robert, and a missing tooth exactly where Robert had a gold tooth. He was held by the police for 1 week and was released when the fingerprints did not match. Then, in October 2014, the police conducted a house raid in Colorado after receiving a tip that he was hiding there. Well, he wasn't, but they did catch 2 other criminals. Despite being placed on the FBI's top 10 most wanted list, Robert still evaded capture. In 2016, the FBI even released new age-enhanced photos of Robert on the 15th anniversary of the murders. But with no breakthrough, the FBI removed him from the list in 2021, but he remains a wanted fugitive. This case didn't fade into obscurity, and over time, various theories and speculations began to surface. One prevalent theory suggests that Robert may have taken his own life, as he had previously spoken about suicidal thoughts. It's believed that he could have parked his 4Runner and went deep into the forest where he ended his life. On the other hand, some hold a more optimistic view, pointing to Robert's impressive survival skills. As a former ex-Navy seasoned fisherman and experienced outdoorsman, he was well equipped to survive by himself. According to one of his hunting partners, Robert was particularly familiar with the area, which could have given him a significant advantage in evading capture and surviving in the wild. Many also believe that Robert survived his days in the forest and might have started a new life under a different identity. Even the detective on the case supported this statement, claiming he could be residing in a small town to make ends meet anonymously, or might have blended in a big city. It has been over 2 decades, and Robert Fisher's case remains unsolved. Even with enhanced technology, answers haven't emerged. The mystery remains, and with it, the questions linger. Where is he? And why did he kill his family so brutally? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.